Hi, guys, it's Maria DeSimone, InsightfulAstrology.com. Welcome to the next video in my Heart Healing series, where I take you through all of the difficult patterns that your horoscope might make with Venus in your birth chart, the planet of love, to other planets in it that actually tell the story of your unique short circuits in love and relationship. But more importantly, by looking at this together, we can turn this around. We can confront those short circuits and really look at the shadow expression of these difficult Venus aspects in order to become more conscious of them and then break the difficult patterns. So I hope you've been enjoying the series so far. Click the link in the description box below if you want to watch some of the other videos. And of course, you do need a copy of your birth chart so that you know what aspects your Venus makes in your chart and what videos to watch because they will relate specifically to your patterns. Today, we are going to talk about Venus-Saturn. And so if you have Venus conjunct, square, quincunx, opposite Saturn in your birth chart, if you have Venus in the seventh house to a Saturn in the seventh house of your birth chart, or to a lesser extent, the second house of your birth chart, and if you have Saturn in the sign Libra in your chart, then you are much more likely to express some of the shadow or difficult relationship patterns that come with a Venus Saturn signature. I was born with a square. I have Venus in Aries in my 12th house, square Saturn in Cancer in my third house. And Venus is also opposite Pluto. So this is part of what's known as a T square. And it does complicate my Venus Saturn a little bit more. And I'm going to talk about that slightly. And I'll let you know when that is a Venus Pluto Saturn signature or just plain old Venus Saturn so that you can really decipher it for yourself. But I'm including it because I want to introduce you to the idea that we are not one aspect alone in our birth chart. Okay, our patterns are complicated and multi layered like an onion. And so we need to peel back all of the layers in order to really get to the meat of what we're trying to heal. So, Venus Saturn by itself. Saturn is the planet of karma. It is the planet of limitation and restriction, but also Saturn is the planet of containment and maturity, responsibility, refinement. So when Saturn is touching Venus, the planet of love, if it's in a really nice aspect, like a sextile or trine, there is a healthy responsibility with love, a healthy, mature outlook when it comes to love and matters of the heart. But when you have Venus in a difficult aspect to Saturn, it tells a different story. And you're more likely to experience the shadow energy of Saturn that Saturn will introduce into your Venus before you can get to the gold. And you're only going to get to the gold through consciousness, awareness, and using that free will to make changes, to make productive changes. So, an unhealthy Saturn Venus signature can make you feel like you are starved in love. You are malnourished in matters of the heart because from childhood, something happened in your childhood experience that imprinted a malnourishment in your sense of self worth. And this doesn't mean you had horrible parents. We're not bashing the parents necessarily here. We're talking about an imprint that your soul chose to have in this lifetime to overcome. Because remember, Saturn is that planet of karma. And you want to look at your Saturn aspects and your Saturn placement closely in your chart because it is the biggest bang for your soul growth buck in this lifetime. So if you chose a Saturn Venus signature in this lifetime, you chose very specifically to address this starving sense of self worth. And it is, you can call it the ugly duckling syndrome. You know, from a young age, you are made to feel or you internalize feelings that you're not pretty enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not worthy enough of love just by being who you are, Venus, just by expressing your unique self, talents, abilities. That in order to access and get love in any real way, you actually have to go out of your way and overcompensate to earn your keep, to earn love. Because by yourself, your Venus is made to feel that it's just not good enough. Saturn is harsh. Saturn is our greatest teacher. So Saturn is saying to your Venus, all right, I'm going to starve your Venus in this lifetime until you learn how to plant your own garden and decorate your own soul and cultivate your own self worth and love yourself enough to understand that there isn't a scarcity in love, that Venus Saturn wants to teach you there is a permanence and stability and maturity in love once you nourish your own sense of self and self worth to give yourself that permanence. So you have to learn how to be stable and cultivate your own sense of self worth and self love in order to have a healthy relationship. And this doesn't happen easily for Venus Saturn people. Saturn rules time. So, with Saturn aspects, the second half of your life is when you're more likely to see the rewards of this, and you're more likely to address this in a mature and healthy way. But early on, first half of your life, those love lessons are harsh. They are difficult because you somehow learn that in order to feel love, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you love of the self in order to get these breadcrumbs of love that you perceive you need from another person in order to define your value, define your Venus, define your self worth. So Saturn does want to give definition to Venus, but early on, we attract unhealthy relationship patterns in order to accomplish that. And examples of this are you attract someone into your life that initially you think is seeing you and valuing your Venus, but then you realize along the relationship over time that you're not fully seen and embraced for your Venus, that love is actually withheld the more you show your actual Venus placement by sign and house. That, as a matter of fact, you're only going to get conditional love when you show that Venus in its purest form. And so you become afraid of showing your Venus. Saturn is fear too. You become insecure. Saturn is insecurity. It feeds into this loop of insecurity and fear connected to your Venus placement because there is some kind of relationship pattern that gets set up early on that teaches you, no, I'm not going to be rewarded with love if I really show my value, my Venus. So you hold back and you learn to do a couple of things with a Venus Saturn pattern. You learn this theory that you have to earn your love. You have to go out of your way to earn love, that love is not given freely, that you've got to pay a heavy price to be loved. And you go out of your way and you overcompensate and you overgive. Another thing that Venus Saturn does is believe in this scarcity mindset so deeply attached to love that when you meet someone, you accept breadcrumbs from that person. You're willing to settle for so little in love, just to feed, just to get little breadcrumbs and bits and pieces to stay alive, to keep your Venus alive. It is like a peasant Venus energy. And the irony of it is that a Venus Saturn person has such a heavy concentration and depth of love to provide and to offer, and the realest kind of love, the most genuine kind of love, but he or she doesn't see this about themselves early on. And so this cycle continues in your love life, and that scarcity mindset teaches you that you can't be loved. You don't deserve love in the way that everybody else around you seems to get. You don't dare deserve to love. So there's that saying, we accept the love we think we deserve. Well, Venus Saturn people accept a scarcity pattern in love. Your needs are not being met, your desires, your wants. You're not feeling validated. And so there is a compromising of your personal integrity over time, in the sense that you feel that because you have this ugly duckling syndrome and that your Venus is not seen as beautiful and worthy. So because of that, you're going to push her down in order to get some kind of love, some kind of breadcrumb love. It is a twisted situation having a Venus Saturn pattern like this. Okay, you can, when you step away from it and you look at it objectively, you're thinking, well, wait, Venus is love and attraction, and you're supposed to show your Venus in order to get that love. But Venus Saturn people learn that no, they have to make themselves small in order to get something, in order to get that little bone thrown their way in love. It's not an easy knot to untangle in your birth chart, and it is going to take a long time. So we have my lemon water. Remember that these videos are part of the Healing Your Heart series. So I encourage you to get a journal and do some of the exercises that I'm going to give you at the end of the video, connected to Venus Saturn patterns and how to work through them. And I'm going to share with you some of my journal reflections now on my own Venus Saturn issues, because you're going to relate to it. Look, it's my storyline, it's my personal storyline, but the theme of a Venus Saturn pattern is we all share it. So you're going to relate to some of what I'm saying here. And this is where I'm going to read to you about Venus Saturn by itself, but also I'm integrating some of my Venus Pluto Saturn stuff so that you can see astrologically how it becomes more complex of a knot to untangle. And you might have a Venus Saturn Neptune. You might have a Venus Saturn Pluto. You might have a Venus Saturn Mars. You might have pure Venus Saturn energy in your chart. Okay, everybody is different. You might have a Venus Saturn Uranus. And by watching all of the videos attached to your Venus placements, you're going to be able to piece the storyline together better for yourself. All right. So before I read about this, I just want to mention the coldness factor of Venus Saturn. So Saturn is a cold planet. And when Saturn is touching Venus, there is this ice queen energy or ice king energy that can happen. And it's very interesting because the opposition, especially, you tend to attract one type to you, and then you project and you become the other person. So you're either Venus or you're Saturn. The square is an internal conflict. So you have both energies, but they don't mesh well. The conjunction is a unification of energies. So Venus Saturn people struggle with this ice queen or ice king coldness factor in love, where you are either attracting a cold love situation to you that you feel like, all right, this is all I deserve. It's like giving you those breadcrumbs, but nobody bothered to put any flavor in them. They're just plain breadcrumbs. And the coldness reality, the harsh reality is you got to settle for it. You got to, that's, if you don't want to starve completely, that's what you're eating. That's what you're feeding your heart. Whereas the other potential for the cold Venus factor is for you to become the cold one and for you to block love, for you to put up these walls of defense in order to self protect. You think you're self protecting so that you don't get hurt. And you're not open. You're not able to easily open up and show love, show your Venus, or give affection, be warm. And so I want you to consider where you might fall in that cold Venus Saturn pattern in your life story, relationship wise. All righty. So I'm going to read to you now from my latest journal entry. And you guys are going to be writing in yours. My heart has been in a coma for 4 months now. This detox has been life-saving for me, and part of me doesn't want it to end. I can finally breathe again. Now, why don't I want it to end? I'm analyzing my own journal entry because the pressure has been relieved of that, the heartbreak, all of that. And now I'm sitting in a space of learning to plant my own garden and nourish my own Venus once again. And this is what you have to do when you have Venus Saturn. So part of me doesn't want it to end because I can breathe again. There's no other factor between me and my Venus. It's just me and my Venus right now. And so Venus Saturn can become comfortable with that feeling of aloneness, a little too comfortable. And then you can avoid relationships. You don't want to do that. All right. I've been thinking about the all consuming intensity of what I went through with X. I'm going to call him X. And how dysregulated it made me. I was completely unhinged and I couldn't see this for myself. I said I was in love. But was that really love? Isn't love supposed to be peaceful, calm, a soothing balm to your heart and soul, and not an excruciatingly thrilling but painful series of insecure adrenal rushes that result in fear of loss? With X, I had passion, plenty of it, but I had no peace. I never felt valued, seen, and fully embraced for who I am. In fact, I always felt like the only way I could earn the breadcrumbs he gave me, that I thought was love, was to push myself out of the equation entirely. After all, I didn't believe that I really deserved love. If I did, I wouldn't keep myself in these vicious cycles of attracting romantic entanglements that promise rejection. Venus, Saturn. This is my Venus, Saturn talking. It's a scarcity mindset when it comes to love. I'll meet someone I'm attracted to and be amazed that he has any interest in me at all. After all, why would anyone want me? That's Venus Saturn talking, guys. And you feel it if you've got it. Then this man will start to pay attention to me, and I miss out on the cues that he sends, the cues that he either isn't really interested in Maria, but rather what he can get from her, or that he will only adore her if she becomes the version of a woman he wants instead of who she actually is. And so the Venus Saturn cycle begins. Extensive overgiving, overcompensating to earn a love that I never felt I deserved in the first place. There is no reciprocity in an unhealthy Venus Saturn love because the Venus Saturn person doesn't know how to take. We don't. We can't even accept a compliment. I mean, pay attention to how you physically feel initially when someone gives you a compliment. We are not comfortable with that because we don't feel like we deserve it on a very deep internal level. Got to fix that. We feel unworthy from the start and immediately give to ensure that the perceived love is not lost. And then they teach someone how to treat them. I taught blank to deplete me, to take, to starve my Venus. Venus-Saturn is already malnourished. And Venus is just so when someone comes along willing to give you those breadcrumbs of love and attention, she'll snatch it up just to keep her Venus alive. What I forgot to do along my life was to learn how to feed my own Venus. This is what we have to do. How to plant my own garden, how to tend to it. Because I never believed enough in my own value and lovability to do this in relationship. When it comes to love, I learned to make myself small in order to keep my heart alive. It's a twisted mindset. My Venus opposite Pluto square Saturn pattern made me personally addicted, Pluto is addiction, to rejection. Saturn. And this is an insight I just recently had. So, I mean, it really goes to prove that you're always learning about your birth chart. Always, always. I I was addicted to rejection. I not only expected it, I created situations. I put myself in situations where I would be rejected because I thought that's what I deserved. Regular Venus Saturn people do expect rejection, just pure Venus Saturn. You do expect rejection, but throw Pluto in the mix, and now there's the addiction. Okay, so I believe that this is what love is: intensity, overgiving, and devaluing myself, compromising my integrity in order to gain love, all followed by crashing rejection and death of the love, quotes, I tried so hard to hold on to. And then I'm left with nothing: no love, no self respect, no self worth, and a long, painful heartbreak and detox from the unhealthy attachment to address. And that's where I am now. But I know this has to change. I'm trying. And I hope you're trying to change your patterns too. So, I want to give you some exercises. If you are a Venus Saturn person and you struggle with these fear of love, fear of rejection. I mean, let's talk about that fear of love. Why are we afraid of love? What do we think is going to happen? Again, we're afraid of love because we're taught from an early age that the only way we're going to get love is to compromise ourselves, is to put our little Venus in its place, step on her. And that makes us afraid of love because we know that we're only going to get love if it's going to cost us our actual Venus. And it has to stop. That has to change. You have to recognize that genuine, real love will value your Venus. And there is always a responsibility in love. There is always a duty. There's always, that reciprocity, but you have to learn healthy reciprocity, not over giving, especially not giving yourself. So that's why you're afraid of love. If you are someone who is afraid to open up in love, because your experience has taught you, oh, it's going to really cost me. I don't know. And then the rejection. I don't know if I can handle more rejection. Okay, so this establishes the fear. But eventually, there can be real Saturn, long lasting Saturn, mature Saturn, love, Venus that comes to you once you work on your own Venus. So one of the exercises that I have for you is take out your journal and write this. Do you suffer from a scarcity mindset when it comes to love? Why do you believe that there is not enough for you? Another question that I have. Address your ugly duckling storyline. When did you become so insecure about your personal worth and beauty and value? How can you become the beautiful swan that you're really meant to be? Because Venus Saturn is timeless beauty. It really is. Timeless beauty. Beauty that ages like a fine wine. That is Venus Saturn beauty. So guys, none of us really are ugly ducklings, even though that's our knee-jerk reaction. In the eyes of other people, they can see a timeless quality to us, a stable, loving quality to us. And that includes physical beauty, emotional beauty. Okay, so how can you become that beautiful swan? Hint, here's the hint, here's how. It is in cultivating your Venus placement without fear and insecurity. Ironically, when you do this, you will attract the love that is right for you and healthy, even though you may not recognize that love at first. That's the other thing. When you finally get to the point of attracting a healthy love to you, there is that initial danger of you actually rejecting it outright because it's so foreign to you. The concept of someone loving you for who you are, for your Venus, without you having to do anything to your Venus to squish it down is a foreign concept. So recognize this when you are in that healthy place and ready to love again. When you attract that right person to you and he or she is valuing your Venus and it seems calm, it seems peaceful. It's not cold, but it's a slow burning kind of a thing. It's a slow growing love. That is real love. And that is the goal for Venus Saturn people. So you want to also address the duty and obligation factor in love. How far do you go in this respect? Compromising and shrinking your own Venus needs in order to feel worthy of love by doing and earning and denying and starving your own Venus, choosing to starve your own Venus in order to accept the breadcrumbs of love that another person gives you. It's so twisted. And that leads me to the next question. Why do you accept breadcrumbs in love? Bits and pieces instead of the buffet. Why do you really feel that this is as good as it gets? Half-ass relationships will always starve you. Now, after you've done all that, I want you to remember that your standards need to change in love. We accept the love we think we deserve. You got to level up when it comes to the kind of love that you think you deserve. So another exercise I want you to pay attention to doing is writing down what are your must-have qualities in a partner. Define what love is to you and define the partner you want in your life to create lasting love with. Now, I want you to read that list and ask yourself if you truly believe you deserve it. If the answer is no, then you're going to spend more time planting your own garden and nourishing your own Venus qualities until your Venus is fed enough, secure enough, and beautiful enough again on its own to turn that no into a yes. So if you do answer no, that's a red flag that you're not ready for love yet. You need to turn that no into a yes. That's your barometer for when you're ready to take your heart out of a coma.